Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. I'm so glad you're here. And today I have these plastic Easter eggs, which I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to make these over to look like some eggs that I saw in an ad from Crate and Barrel with a few variations. So to do this, to start, I'm going to slice up some bathroom tissue, and I'm also going to separate it. This is 2-ply, and I want single plies of this bathroom tissue. So I've got some longer pieces, and then I'm going to cut it up into some shorter pieces as well. And then I'm going to take some white glue, or you might know it as school glue or PVA glue. I got this particular one at the Dollar Tree, and put some in a bowl and add quite a bit of water and mix it around. I don't want it super watery, but I don't want it to be really thick and gluey either. And what I'm then going to do is just decoupage those single plies of bathroom tissue to my eggs. And this is because these plastic eggs are very slippery. And what we're going to do next requires them to have a little bit more friction on their surface. So this doesn't have to be perfect, but do get it as smooth as you can without touching the tissue too much. Once you put it on, it's a little bit hard to move it around. So I found the easiest way to do this is to use my finger and get a little bit of that glue water mixture and put it on the egg from pole to pole, just a sort of a stripe of it, and then take a long piece of the bathroom tissue and put it down on that, and then pat it down all over with some more of the glue water mixture. And then do another piece opposite that, again pole to pole, and then I can use some of the shorter pieces between those to fill it in, and that way I don't get a real thick layer at the top and the bottom of the egg. So I'm just going to do that for all of the eggs, and I have here, it is the backing from some, I think, Cricut vinyl. So it's really slippery, and that's what I'm putting my eggs on to dry. I think something like maybe tinfoil would work as well. And I let them dry overnight. Now, with those eggs all dry, I'm going to cover them with twine. And I got all of my twine at the Dollar Tree. So I have just, it's not even twine, string, which I got in the automotive section. And then later you'll see I have some other twine, which I'll show you. Right now I'm going to work with the string from the automotive section. So the eggs that I saw in the Crate and Barrel ad were sort of pastel colors, and that's the look that I want to go for. And obviously the string is not a pastel color. So I'm going to show you two different ways that I got that pastel look. So with this first method, what I have is some gel food coloring, and I've put a tiny drop of pink gel food coloring in my bowl, and then added in some glue and some water and mixed it up. And you just have to experiment with the color, and it's going to look a little different when it's wet versus dry, but not a lot different. And I've cut my string into lengths that are about a foot long here, although you can work with longer lengths, and I do think that's easier. And I am wearing gloves, although I don't know if that's necessary, but I didn't want to dye my fingers. I don't wear gloves for any of the other methods. You don't need them for the other methods, but for this one where I've got wet dye and glue mixed together, I thought I would wear gloves. So what I'm going to do is take one of my lengths of string and put it in the glue, water, food dye mixture and get it saturated. And then it's important that you wring some of that out. So when I pull it out of the mixture, I then just run my fingers along it and get all the excess off of it. And I found it was easiest to start around the equator of the egg equator, if you will. And part of the reason is that there's a line there because these are the sort of eggs that open and close. And so that gives me something that I can follow. So I'm just following along the line. There is also like a little latch there, again, because these eggs open and close. They open and close on a latch. If your eggs don't have a latch, that's probably better just because the latch makes a little bump. But I just basically worked around the latch, and I'll show you later what I did to cover up the latch once this was done. But then I just continued to take pieces of the twine and dip them in the mixture and then wring them out. And I would match it up to where my last bit of twine ended and just continue to go around the egg. Now with this egg, I did it in 2 steps. I did not do it in 2 steps with any other egg, but with this egg I thought I would let half of it dry, and then I came back and did the other half. And of course that requires that you match up your color when you come back and do it the second time. But I don't think that's necessary. All of the other eggs, I did the whole egg all at the same time. And so you're just going to continue wrapping around the egg, and once you get to the top, you're just going to keep swirling smaller and smaller circles, and eventually what I did with this egg was I just pressed the string down into that final little hole at the top that wasn't covered, and I left it because I didn't want to get any of this mixture on my scissors, so I waited until it dried. But with all of the others, I just cut it once I got there and pressed it in so that it was finished. So this is one method of getting that pastel color. Let me show you the other method. Now here I want to show you the different twines that I'm going to use. So I have these baker twines, and I had to get 3 different packages from the Dollar Tree to get all of the colors that I wanted to work with. I wasn't sure exactly what colors I wanted to work with, but I wanted more of your spring Easter colors. So I got 3 packages of that, and I do love baker's twine. Do you love it? For me, I have fond memories of a bakery, specifically a donut bakery that was in my town, and very rarely we would get the treat of donuts from that donut shop when I was a little girl growing up. And it was always a box that was tied with baker's twine. So I have some different colors of baker's twine. I also have a blue twine, which I did get at the Dollar Tree. I have blue, red, and green twine from the Dollar Tree. So they do sometimes have fun colors. The red and the green are too bright, but the blue is a sort of pastel-y sort of color. So what I'm going to do is just cut lengths of those. But for the string, I'm going to cut much longer pieces of the string. The only concern here is that it gets tangled up as you're working with it. But if you're careful, that shouldn't happen. And so for the other eggs that I want to be a solid pastel color, I'm just going to wrap them completely with the string. So again, starting at the egg equator and going all the way around to one end and then all the way around to the other end, covering them with just the string. My main tip here is to hold the egg in the middle and try not to hold it where 2 pieces of string touch, because those places and the ends are where it's likely to come undone. If I accidentally held it by an end, the end would come undone while I was working on it. And if you have a spot that doesn't seem like it's held down very well, then just take a little of the mixture on your finger and run it over it, saturate it a little bit, and it should stay in place. I didn't have too much trouble with this, surprisingly. I do think that initial step of putting down the tissue paper is really helpful because it gives it something to grip onto. Now, for some of the other eggs, I thought I would do a mixture of the blue twine, and on one egg I did blue twine and then string and the baker's twine. So for this egg, I started with the purple and the white baker's twine at the equator, and then I did some blue on either side of that. And then I did some of the string, and then the purple and white again, and then the blue. And for this egg, I decided to make it mostly blue. So I started in the center with the blue and did a thick band, and then I just did 2 thin bands of the green and white baker's twine, and then I did the top and the bottom of the egg with the blue again. I apologize that it's near the bottom of the screen. I don't think I was completely conscious of where I was filming. And for my final baker's twine egg, I did the yellow and white baker's twine in the center, and then stripes of blue, and then stripes of yellow, and then finished off the top and the bottom with the blue. So I think this is really fun twine, and it gives you some really fun variations. So here's a place where you can be really creative and put an egg together with different colors the way you like. And you can certainly combine this with the dyeing too. So I'm going to show you a second method of dyeing. So first, just to repair some areas, like for example, I said where you've got that little hinge on some of the eggs, what I did was once they had dried, I let them dry overnight. And once they had dried, I just cut a tiny piece of whatever twine was in the middle where the hinge was, and I used Mod Podge and just Mod Podged over that hinge. And any other location where there ended up being a gap, it didn't have a lot of gaps. It's not that hard to do this. Just sort of roll the egg and press the twine up against the last bit of twine. But any place where there was a little gap, I would put a little bit of twine in with Mod Podge. And then on my blue and purple and string egg, part of the string had been stained somehow. So I just cut a little bit of string and sort of opened it up. So I just had little threads of the string and put that over where that color was. And again, covered that with Mod Podge. Now you can cover the eggs entirely with Mod Podge if you feel like they just haven't adhered that well. Mine, I thought, had mostly adhered really well. The string ones aren't entirely dry, and so they're not completely stuck down, whereas the other ones, which were made from twine, they are completely stuck down and they're pretty stiff. But that brings me to my other method of dyeing, which is with Mod Podge once the string has dried. So what I did was just put really very little of the food coloring in a little dish and added in Mod Podge, and then basically just painted over the entire egg with the Mod Podge. So this is going to make it nice and stiff and seal it in, and it's also going to dye it. So I did a very light yellow egg and just used a tiny bit of a drop of the food coloring for that one. And I also did an orange egg, and for this egg I painted the whole thing and decided that the orange was really just too light. And so I did add more orange and then just went over the whole thing again. And between steps here, occasionally I'm taking it out and blow drying it so that it's just a little bit drier on the outside. And so then I can hold the part that I've dried a little bit and paint the other end, or Mod Podge the other end. And finally, I have my prototype egg here, which is one where I had done the string and then Mod Podged over with the color, and I used a pretty saturated teal there. And you can see I've only done part of that egg. I just wanted to see if this method would work. And I'm going to put a light teal. It's the same teal color, but a lot less of the food coloring in the Mod Podge than I did for the saturated teal, just to illustrate that you can do stripes and combinations of colors with the food coloring as well, painting it on after. I think you could do probably any sort of pattern you want, but the stripes are going to look, I think, more natural because this is twine and it is wrapped around the egg. So if you do dots and stuff, I think it just probably won't look quite as natural, but it could look really cool. I didn't try it. So I did kind of like the look of the eggs when they were covered with just string. So I did take a picture of them before I dyed them. So here's the eggs with just string and then the finished eggs. So I would love to know what you think of this process. If you have a favorite egg, or if you have ideas for how you would do it differently, please tell me in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.